Dr. Armstrong came out of the dining room and once more came out on the terrace. The judge was sitting in a chair now, gazing placidly out to the sea. Lombard and Blore were over to the left, smoking but not talking. As before, the doctor hesitated for a moment. His eyes rested speculatively on Mr. Justice Orgrave. He wanted to consult with someone. He was conscious of the judge's acute logical brain, but nevertheless he wavered. Mr. Justice Wargrave might have a good brain, but he was an elderly man. At this juncture, Armstrong felt what was needed was a man of action. He made up his mind. Lombard, can I speak you for a minute? Philip started. Of course. The two men left the terrace. They strolled down the slope towards the water. When they were out of earshot, Armstrong said, I want a consultation. Lombard's eyebrows went up. He said, My dear fellow, I have no medical knowledge. No, I mean as to the general situation. Oh, that's different, Armstrong said. Frankly, what do you think of the position? Lombard reflected a minute. Then he said, It's rather suggestive, isn't it? What are your ideas on the subject of that women? Do you accept Blore's theory? Philip puffed smoke into the air. He said, It's perfectly feasible, taken alone. Exactly. Armstrong's tone sounded relieved. Philip Lombard was no fool. The latter went on. That is, accepting the premise that Mr. and Mrs. Rogers have successfully got away with murder in their time, and I don't see why they shouldn't. What do you think they did exactly? Poisoned the old lady? Armstrong said slowly. It might be simpler than that. I asked Rogers this morning what this Miss Brady had suffered from. His answer was enlightening. I don't need to go into medical details, but in a certain form of cardiac trouble, amyl nitrite is used. When an attack comes on, an ampoule of amyl nitrite is broken and it is inhaled. If amyl nitrite were withheld, well, the consequences might easily be fatal. Philip Lombard said thoughtfully, as simple as that. It must have been rather tempting. The doctor nodded. Yes, no positive action, no arsenic to obtain and administer, nothing definite, just negation. And Rogers hurried through the night to fetch a doctor, and they both felt confident that no one could ever know. And if anyone knew, nothing could ever be proved against them, added Philip Lombard. He frowned. Suddenly, of course, that explains a good deal. Armstrong said, puzzled. I beg your pardon? Lombard said, I mean, it explains Soldier Island. There are crimes that cannot be brought home to their preparators. Instance, the Rogers. Another instance, old Wargrave, who committed his murder strictly within the law. Armstrong said sharply, You believe that story? Philip Lombard smiled. Oh, yes, I believe it. Wargrave murdered Edward Seton, all right. Murdered him as surely as if he'd stuck in a stiletto through him. But he was clever enough to do it from the judge's seat in wig and gown. So, in ordinary way, you can't bring this little crime home to him. A sudden flash passed like lightning through Armstrong's mind. Murder in hospital, murder on operating table, safe, yes, safe as houses. Philip Lombard was saying, Hence, Mr. Owen, hence Soldier Island. Armstrong drew a deep breath. Now we are getting down to it. What's the real purpose of getting us all here? Philip Lombard said. What do you think? Armstrong said abruptly. Let's go back a minute to this woman's death. What are the possible theories? Rogers killed her because he was afraid she would give the show away. Second possibility. She lost her now and took an easy way out herself. Philip Lombard said, Suicide. What do you say to that? Lombard said it could have been, yes, if it hadn't been for Marston's death. Two suicides within 12 hours is a little too much to swallow. And if you tell me that Anthony Marston, a young bull with no nerves and precious little brains, got the wind up over having moved down a couple of kids and deliberately put himself out of the way, well, the idea's laughable. And anyway, how did he get hold of the stuff? From all I have heard, potassium cyanide isn't the kind of stuff you take about with you in your waistcoat pocket. But that's your line of country. Armstrong said, nobody in their senses carries potassium cyanide. It might be done by someone who was going to take a wasp nest. The ardent gardener or landowner, in fact. Again, not Anthony Marston. It strikes me that cyanide is going to need a bit of explaining. Either Anthony Marston meant to do away with himself before he came here and therefore came prepared, or else Armstrong prompted him, or else Philip Lombard grinned. Why make me say it when it's on the tip of your own tongue? Anthony Marston was murdered, of course.